back to New York Comic Con. I'm Katie Wilson with SYFY Wire. I have a very, very exciting guest here with me today. Please give it up for Claudio Sanchez.
All right.
Look at this crowd. This is incredible. They're all very excited to see you. And I know I'm really excited as well. So I want to hear, obviously, this is the long-awaited continuation of the Amory Wars. So what can you tell us?
This is the first half of part 4. And right now, it's just basically a collected edition, so it's 12-issue maxi series that came out last year. And here it is basically collected with also like the original graphic novel that we put out with the album that had the same name. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's really kind of the beginning of the end, basically, of the Amory Wars, at least the co-eating Cambria portion of it. So.
And I know this is a very personal story for you. So what really first sparked interest in creating this, and especially creating such a vast world?
Well, when I created the band in 1998, I had a hard time as the sort of frontman expressing myself in songs. Like, I didn't want to basically kind of wear my heart on my sleeve, so I figured I'd create this piece of fiction that I could essentially tell my story through, but also blame all of it on. So, but yeah, that's really it. I mean, it just kind of sparked from somebody that was pretty introverted, shy, and what came with being in a rock and roll band was really hard for me to sort of digest. So this was an easy way to digest it, was to basically create a piece of fiction, that I could sort of live in. And, all of these characters are basically sort of, related to people that, I grew up with. I mean, the name, the Amory Wars, is taken from the street I grew up on, Amory Drive. And so it's just all these little things that sort of hint to my real life, and but in a more fantastic, sort of way.
Was it always your plan to create a comic or graphic novel based upon the stories in your music?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when I created the idea, the key work is basically the energy source that binds the whole galaxy of Heaven's Fence together, right? And that's actually taken from the guys I worked at a pet store before I became the rock and roll guy that I am now. So I worked in this pet store, and the guys that owned the pet store, their last name was Keywork. And so I decided at that time that I would name the system after them. Like, I would sort of tribute that time in my life after them. And on my breaks, I would actually visit a comic shop that was across the street. And that, I'd always loved comics, but I thought, what a great way to sort of tell the story in sort of another dimension, and that was it. So in 1998, when I created the idea, it was always supposed to have this visual counterpart. And then when the band put out its first record in 2001, then came the time to sort of figure out a way to translate it into this medium. And 2004, we actually released our first book, that was about it. So yeah.
That's awesome. And now, I know everyone out here knows the story of the Amory Wars, but for those at home who are maybe just hearing about this for the first time, give us just a little bit of I know it's so loud here.
I'm the worst at this. I'm such a bad salesman. But
yeah, just give us a little bit of a rundown as to, what the story's about, what people can expect.
This is my kryptonite. So basically it's about 78 planets that are aligned in this triangular form called Heaven's Fence. The keywork sort of binds it together, and it's basically about these two characters co-eating Cambria that find out that they're not actually born into the colony, but they were actually built for it. And in learning that information, it sort of sends them down this series of downward spirals that sort of leads to their demise, and their son is kind of putting together this mystery of what happened to them, and in doing so finds out that he's actually been given this gift as the Crowing, which is basically the great destroyer of Heaven's Fence. And so it's him sort of coping with, that, and learning that maybe free will has something to do with his being there, and that maybe he can, instead of being the great destroyer, be the great savior that Heaven's Fence needs. And we sort of start to figure that out in this volume. So yeah.
That was perfectly said.
Was it? I don't know.
Yes. I think so. And besides obviously, drawing from your own personal experiences, were there any other influences that helped you create this?
I think for me, just science fiction in general. I mean, I remember being a kid and loving Star Wars so much that, when my family got HBO, it was like, oh, Star Wars, we're going to get to see Star Wars in the living room. And really all we got was Ice Pirates and Krull, which I actually loved both of those movies. And I think that was it. Like, it was just falling in love with that and then discovering comic books as a medium and, like, seeing Batman in 1989, all these sort of things I think kind of converged on who I am, and they entertained me enough that I sort of wanted to do that with myself.
And what do you think it is about having a visual representation, especially with an album to go along with it, that is so appealing to fans?
I just think it gives, certainly the records, another dimension. I mean, all of the music sort of really comes from a very personal place. I don't force feed the fiction in the lyrics. I mean, it's there should you choose to want to discover it. And that's what this is kind of there for, is like to have a counterpart that you can sort of bridge the two of them. And so that's the thing, is like with a record, you're allowed to experience as you want, take from it what you will, but if you really want it to sort of blossom into something else, that's what's kind of cool about this.
Yeah, and you mentioned you are a reader of comic books. Mm-hmm. Do you have any favorites?
Yes, I mean, it all depends. If we're talking like single issues, I do collect single issue like key moments. But as far as like story arcs go, Watchmen, Batman's The Long Halloween, what else? Saga I really enjoyed. I've got all sorts of them. But as far as like single issues go, I'm a big fan of key moments. So like Incredible Hulk 181, first appearance of Wolverine, or like Werewolf by Night 32, first Moon Knight, like things like that. Like that's like what I collect at the moment. But yeah, I mean, at this moment in time, it's hard. I don't really have anything that's new that I've been reading. It's just really what my son wants to read.
Yeah. So I know fans are still hoping that the Amory Wars could be a feature film or maybe a series. Is that still something that you're hoping for?
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking with a animation company at the moment about potentially adapting it into an animation of sort, whether it's episodic or a full feature, but it's still just talks. I mean, at some point, I think something will happen. Whether I'm alive or dead is when it does is really the question, I think.
I think that'd be really cool. Do you have any like casting ideas?
When I looked at the second stage Turbine Blade cover, it's basically Coheed sort of in this nightmare scenario fighting off like soldiers, and he looks very much like Jason Momoa, but that was before he sort of became the Aquaman and all of that stuff. But it's really hard. I don't know. I like Willem Dafoe as maybe a Willem Ryan. That's about it. I haven't really cast.
We had a very strong yes out here for that.
Oh, okay, right on.
So, I mean, what was it like revisiting this? Because, it's been a few years, and I think fans are really, really excited for this. So what was it initially like for you to come back, revisit it? Has anything changed?
Yeah, we definitely now, when we originally released the graphic novel, when the record came out, the Amory Wars didn't have like sort of the backing it does now, and we didn't have the finances to really do the story justice. Like, it was kind of slim. So this time around, we really got to dive in and add what I feel like was omitted back then. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Sorry, I think I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's totally fine. Outside of your own Coheed and Cambria albums, are there any albums from other artists that you would love to see turned into graphic novels?
Albums from artists? I don't know.
It's a tough question.
It kind of is. I guess it would have to. I don't really know. I have no answer to that.
Like Pink Floyd, maybe? The Wall?
Well, I mean, The Wall already happened.
It already did happen.
That's fine. I don't know, maybe Jethro Tull's Aqualung. I want to see that.
Ooh.
I don't know, that creepy pervert Aqualung. I want to see a story about him.
Why not? Why not? So now that this is coming out, what are you working on next? Can we expect more graphic novels and comics from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, my wife and I are outlining the follow-up to this, which sort of concludes the Coheed and Cambria arc of the Amory Wars, and that's just taken some time because we're trying to bridge all of the stories from Year of the Black Rainbow to this part, just trying to tie everything up. So that's where we're at right now. I think we're in the final stages of the outline. So hopefully something soon will come in that world, and from there we'll do Year of the Black Rainbow. We'll adapt that into a comic, and then move on to the Vaxis story arc.
Very cool. How about some new music?
Yeah, I mean, I'm slowly working on that, but I think right now the follow-up to this has really become the priority.
That's awesome. Well, it's so great to get to chat with you and get to hear more about this. And guys, give it up for Claudio Sanchez. Absolutely incredible. And now this will be available on October 8th, correct?
Yeah, and it's available at the convention right now. So,
oh, awesome.
Yeah,
and I know
so
you can pre-order it online currently.
Booth 2322 is where we're at. I'll be there signing with my wife and stuff, and this will be there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Give it up again for Claudio Sanchez. And for you guys at home, keep following our SYFY Wire coverage live from New York Comic Con. Be sure to use the hashtag NYCC19 and at SYFY Wire. Stick around because up next we have Chris Claremont joining us, so stick around.